we were talking of powder metallurgy, and there is, as I said, a similar word called sintering, where small grains, small particles, powder of a metal are pressurized under temperature into the final shape. Because these are now very fine grains and so on, so the quality of the product is very good. You know from your material science that if the grain size is small, then the continuity, the homogeneity, and the strength and hardness of the material are better. And in processes, manufacturing processes like 3D printing, this type of process of powder metallurgy is generally used. Joining, right? Now joining, right? So we were talking of manufacturing, how metals are handled and so on. So there is a full area called casting where you melt and solidify. There is a full area called forming where extrusion, rolling, forging and so on are different types of processes. There is powder metallurgy. All the three are different and so on. Machining is of course there, right? When you go to a workshop where you have lathe machine and milling machine and so on, then machining or metal removal or metal cutting is one whole part of manufacturing and so forth, which you also know. So all of these are used, all of these methods, right? Either casting, which is melting and solidifying, or powder metallurgy, where you start with a powder rather than a normal metal, or bulk deformation or forming, extrusion, rolling, forging. These are all methods by which you make individual parts or individual components. But when you have different individual components and you want to assemble them in the final product, in the shape of a final product, right? Take a car. There are hundreds of different types of parts and so on. And then you have to assemble all of them into the car. So we were talking now of the final process of joining, assembly. So in joining, of course, welding is one permanent method of joining. And because there is a big high temperature, so the welding rod and the base metal both melt and join together. So there is a heat affected zone. Away from the heat affected zone, this is piece 1 and piece 2 that you are joining. They are unaffected, so they have the original metal properties. But because here there is a huge amount of temperature, so you know crystallization will be there, new grains will be formed, so there will be a heat affected zone. And the process of welding is designed, if it is designed well, in such a way that even in the heat affected zone, the properties of the joined metal, fused metal, are not very far from the original metal. Because you see, the main thing is that the original metal was selected because of certain properties that you want in the design. So in the heat affected zone, if the properties go down, then you don't have the same thing as you designed. So if it is a good piece of welding, well designed, the filler rod, the welding method and so on are selected in such a way that after welding, once everything is cooled off and the crust and so on is removed and cleaned and so on, you have almost the same metal properties as you had in the originally designed selected material. Hot working, you know, we know from earlier courses, when you do any manufacturing process at room temperature, you call it cold working. When you increase the temperature, you call it warm working or hot working. If the temperature at which you work is above the recrystallization temperature, then you know again from your earlier courses that new crystals are formed, recrystallize, right? And then they grow back into the original size and so on. So now when new crystals are formed, then the properties will be changed, right? So this type of working is different than normal working. Hot working, right? Hot working is not just that very high temperature is hot. You see, for aluminum, if you go say above 300 Celsius, then maybe you are already at a temperature where recrystallization has taken place. So for aluminums and aluminum alloys, 300 or plus will be hot working. But for steels, if say recrystallization takes place around 800 and above, then for steels, hot working will be 800 Celsius or above, right? And so on. So this was a brief recap. As I said, you see, we have said time and time again from the beginning of the course that this is a higher level course on materials, advanced materials. The minimum that you have done one basic course in material science, you have done one basic course in manufacturing. So here, whenever we are in an area where we are just very quickly revising so that all of you are mentally in the frame of mind where we want to start higher topics, before doing that, we very quickly revise for you the earlier things. But that is why, right, one basic book on earlier material science, one or two basic chapters only of earlier manufacturing are required, and whether you like it or not, if you don't quickly revise that material, then the higher level that we will cover in this chapter, for example, will be weak, right? What I do as a help to you is that when I post the homeworks, I put some questions in the homework from those previous courses also, so that you quickly revise them and then we reach the higher level. So now, what advantages do alloys offer? We remember from earlier course, an alloy means you have a basic metal like aluminum or tin or copper or iron. You add something to it. Either you add a non-metal like carbon or sulfur or phosphorus, or you add another metal to it. But you add it in a certain way that it is a mixture. It does not become a compound. You see, if it chemically reacts, then it is not the same material anymore. But if you take iron and you add carbon to it, in a way that you do not let the iron or carbon to chemically react, then carbon is still carbon, iron is still iron. But by mixing them in a certain way, you get better properties. So that is an alloy, right? So what are the advantages, and then a little bit of what are phase diagrams. So again, when we start this section, we will go very quickly, because in earlier courses in material science, you have done at least one chapter or two chapters of phase diagrams. So we would again, right, want you to quickly go through that. So alloys are homogeneous mixtures of a metal with one or more metals or non-metals, and what you get in the end is called a solid solution. If it is a solution, then there will be a solubility limit. So much of this can dissolve and more of. So from earlier, you know, for example, if you have a nickel copper alloy, you mix nickel and copper. You keep on adding 1%, 2%, 10%, 20% nickel to copper, for example. But you know from your earlier studies that nickel and copper are 100% soluble in each other. So you can add 99% nickel into 1% of copper and it is still a very homogeneous uniform alloy. But then there are other things, like when you start adding carbon into iron, which makes it steel. 1% carbon, okay, 2% carbon dissolves, 3% carbon dissolves. But if you go a little over 6% carbon, then carbon stops dissolving, right? So therefore, in the iron carbide diagram, there will be a solubility limit. So some metals are completely soluble into the other 100%, some are not. Some non-metals are completely soluble into the other metal, some are not, and therefore there will be a solubility limit. Phases and phase diagrams. So here, for example, if you see, this is copper and nickel, right? So this is a copper nickel alloy phase diagram. On one side you have temperature, always on a phase diagram. On the other side you have the composition. This says weight percent nickel. So if you are here at this point, there is 20% nickel by weight and 80% copper, right? So this is it, right? 0% to 100% of nickel, 0% to 100%. For copper, 100% to 0%, the opposite. So at any point on the horizontal axis, the composition of the alloy is given, and here the temperature is given. So as an example, if we start with a 40% nickel alloy, 40% nickel would mean 40% nickel, 60% copper. So you make a vertical line here, right? So this vertical line is your composition. And if you are at a very high temperature, say at 1400 Celsius, so everything is liquid. Everything is liquid. When you start dropping the temperature, only the temperature drops. When you hit this line, then some of the liquid starts to become solid. Some of the liquid starts to become solid. When you drop the temperature further, more and more of the liquid converts into solid. This is a phase diagram in which after you completely solidify, the solid phase will be only one solid phase, which we call alpha here. Right? So we started with a 40% alloy, 40% nickel. It will be liquid, 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 liquid as we cool it. Once you hit it, it will become liquid plus solid. Once you start cooling it further, then more and more of the liquid will become alpha solid. Once you hit this line, all of the remaining liquid will become alpha solid, right? This type of an alloy, if you remember, is known as an isomorphous. Iso means same. So once you solidify, you get only one solid phase, alpha here, isn't it? So this is a binary isomorphic alloy. Binary means there are two elements initially. So copper is there, nickel is there. So if there are only two things that you are mixing together, then it is a binary alloy. So it is a binary alloy here. It is an isomorphous alloy if after becoming completely solid, there is only one phase, right? So this diagram, copper, nickel, for example, is a binary isomorphous alloy system. And this diagram, on which one axis is temperature, the other axis is composition, is known as a phase diagram, right? So you know this. Again, you can quickly go back to your previous course and try to review, but we have already reviewed the basics. So as I said earlier, binary isomorphic system, right, which we have just shown you. Interpreting the phase diagram, right? So we have already told you that, for example, if you start with any composition, you could start with a 20% alloy, do a vertical line here. You could start with a 40% alloy, do a vertical line here. A 60% nickel alloy, do a straight line here. This line, upper line, where the liquid starts to change into solid, is called liquidus line, liquidus. And this bottom line, where all the liquid completely changes into solid, is called a solidus line. Above the liquidus, here or here or here, it is liquid. Below the solidus, here or here or here, it is the solid. And the solid is alpha solid here, right? So there is a liquidus line and a solidus line in a binary isomorphous alloy system. At any point in between, right? Any point in between. For example, here we are saying this is 40%, this is 50%, this is 60%. So as an example, we are saying that we are taking 50% nickel alloy as our basic alloy. We are working with it. And we want to find out what happens at 1300 Celsius. Right? Not other temperatures, not a temperature higher, not a temperature lower. We are taking an example of a 50% nickel alloy, and we are asking the question, what happens to it at a temperature of 1300 Celsius? So you make a vertical line for your alloy, and you make a horizontal line for the temperature at which you are working. So now, right, this vertical line and this temperature cross here. So this will be the state in which your metal will be. But here it means it is a mixture of liquid and solid, right? Above it, it is completely liquid. Below this line, it is completely solid. In between, it is a mixture of the two. So here, this solid dot shows you that your 50% nickel alloy at 1300 Celsius will have a mix of solid and liquid. So you want to find out more detail about it.